you should have acted. They are already here.
Good morning, ladies. Right, today we're going to be actually doing the patching. Just pause that. Obviously, copyright infringement. Don't want to get a certain letter off certain peoples. Very awesome song. Headhunters. Brilliant. Well, used to be. Anyway, yeah. In my previous video, I discussed why we need to patch. I showed you a couple of examples of what needs to be done, why it needs to be done, and I showed you a quick little example of the certain things that need to be shown. I showed you the outfits and how to add different records from different mods into one custom created ESP, so that then you are forcing the game to use whichever records that you've decided it needs to be using. Now, I do apologise for how long it's taken me to get this video sorted, because there's been quite a few updates recently, a hell of a lot of updates. Unofficial patches get updated, and then so does everything else, and TesEdit as well. The tool that we use for this process has been updated and has forced me to reevaluate and change my process. The process still works. The only main difference being that originally I would recommend that everybody did exactly what I did, obviously. And that was to create an individual patch for each set of conflicts. So if there was a conflict between Elysium Estate and Skyrim Immersive Creatures, that would be one ESP. And then if Elysium Estate conflicted with ELFX, I'd make another patch for that, and so on and so forth. Creating about 40 or 50 patches altogether, then I would merge those together into one overall patch. That was just mainly for ease of use later on when you start updating your mods and things like that halfway through a game. But the new version of TesEdit actually has an indexing limit set to 254 ESPs, so that you can't go above the 255 limit. Which is fair enough. I can completely understand why they've done that, but it just makes my process fucking irritating. So instead, we are just going to be copying everything directly and straight off into one massive custom patch. It makes things a little bit more irritating later on in life when you start updating your mods and things. Tez Arena is one. Tez Arena adds a bunch of new towns and cities to the world, but every time he updates the mod, he rebuilds. He seems to rebuild every single town and city to increase performance, which is a very good thing. You know, he updates the mod, you get the same towns and cities, but you end up with a lot better performance, and it's got no bugs in it, etc., etc. The only downside is, because he's rebuilt it, that means all the form IDs and all the references have now changed, meaning that your custom patch is referring to items that no longer exist. And that means you've got to spend quite a while digging through your custom patch, finding all the individual records that you need to now remove and replace with new ones. That is the reason why I would suggest that you create different patches and merge them. But like I say, we can't anymore. So yeah. But this now is Still the exact same process. You're still going to end up with a very good game. And I suppose we should start, really. So, this is Mod Organizer. Duh. Right, yeah. So we have everything that we need all set up. It does look like a lot here. I know you sat there thinking, wow. But a lot of these are just textures, or you've got scope bows, and you've got the Percus Maximus patch that overwrites that, and then you've got the refraction patch that overwrites those two and stuff, you know. So I don't actually have 454 mods installed. There's probably more like 300, but yeah. So we have everything sorted out that needs to be sorted out. I am using where is it? I am using Real Shelter, but I'm not going to be running the patcher for that until I've completed my custom patch, just in case. And then on the right hand side here we have our ESP load order. So the first thing we need to do, right click, enable all, just to make sure that every single one of them's ticked. Then starting at the top, anything that's got the little brush, that is a brush, apparently, but yeah. Everything that's got the little brush, just untick. Because that brush tells you that it was... There we go, that brush there tells you that it's a dummy file. As you can read there, it only exists so the BSA is unpacked. So that ESP file's entire job is to tell Skyrim to load the BSA file for it. Mod Organizer does that itself anyway. So they're not needed. And you might as well save yourself three ESP slots. So now we just need to scroll down, double check all the others. That little symbol means that there's an ini file connected to that. I'll talk about that in my guide, but essentially that's just a few changes to an ini file that are then going to get loaded up in the game as well. And there's another one for alternative start. But the first thing we need to do before we start patching is load up TezEdit, because we are going to create a merged patch. Essentially what we're going to have at the bottom of our load order is we are going to have the merged patch that we're going to create here. Then loading directly after that, we're going to have our custom patch which we're going to create. Directly after that, we're going to have the bashed patch, and then following the bashed patch will be anything created by Skyproc patches, such as is, Skyrim, obviously in my case Percus Maximus, anything like that. Anything that has a separate Skyproc patcher that runs itself should always be loaded at the very bottom of your list. Loot will sort this out for you, but there's no point building those until we've made our custom patch. So, as I say, the first thing we need to do is not that, because one is a moron. First thing we need to do is run loot to make sure everything is in the correct order. Very simple. Open up loot, click run, wait for it to finish, close it. Done. And as we can see here, there are no dirty plugins because I've already gone through and cleaned all of those. We have no errors and no warnings. There are just 12 messages, and if you want, you can go through the details, scroll down, and you can find, there you go, there's a message. Race menu plugin is optional, yada yada blada. Do not clean this one because it's got intentional dirty edits, yada yada yada, stuff like that. Messages you don't really need to worry about. Alright, now that we've actually used our brain and sorted our load order, we have turned off any mods that have any ESPs, sorry, not mods, just the ESPs that have got that little symbol there because it's useless. Everything else is turned on. We have our batch patch unticked. It is not loading because we do not want the batch patch yet. And there we go. Once it's eventually finished, I say eventually, it was only a minute and a half, but yeah. Once it's finished loading, this is every single ESP that was in this list here that has been ticked. So you'll notice at the very bottom there's no bashed patch, and at the top there's no high-res resolution patches. This is just everything that we are going to be loading that we need to worry about. So what we do is right click on any mod, it doesn't matter. Just right click in there, go to Other, Create Merged Patch. Now this warning is just a load of crap basically. Merged patch is unsupported for Skyrim. Create it only if you know what you are doing and can troubleshoot problems yourself. All that means is that be careful, because if anything goes wrong with the patch you're making, you're going to have to fix it yourself. It can't be sorted by another person, because no one's going to do it for you. So we click Next. Now, you can call it whatever the hell you want, but Loot actually has its own load order reference for a merged patch. So we simply have to name this in capitals TES, the Elder Scrolls 5 merged. So now we click OK. We wait a few moments. It might pop up saying not responding. Do not worry. Just wait. And there we go. A merged TES5 merged.esp has now been created. But we're not quite done yet, because as we can see, it's got a lot of masters in there. It's created custom patches for, there you go. It's taken the keyword from that and the keyword from unofficial and put them both together. In factions, it has done exactly the same. It's taken the factions from Animal Tweaks, it's taken the factions from unofficial and Obis and put them all together, which is exactly what we want. Same with containers and everything else that's in here, but we need to remove the leveled items. We need to remove the leveled lists, because we want to be using bashed patch for the leveled lists, because bash patch creates so much better than anything else can. To get rid of that is simple enough. Right click on it, remove. Oh, you're absolutely yes, of course I'm sure, otherwise I wouldn't have clicked on it. And the same in leveled NPC. Remove. Yes. And there we are. We now have an automatic patch that has patched weapons for us, NPC characters, miscellaneous items, you know, war horns, shovel, just a few random little bits that no one really spots in game anyway. We have magic effects. In this case, summon a subjugated ghost. And this has automatically copied over the changes from cutting room floor and the additions from Undeath. And the last final thing to do, because we deleted those leveled lists, we need to clean masters. And all that does is that just takes a few of the mods. There you go, straight away you can see that list is a lot smaller now. It's just taking the mods that were in here only because of the leveled lists and just taking them out just to clean it up a little bit. So all we simply do is close, make sure that's ticked to save it, click OK. And it's done. Now myself, I put this in that folder there called Custom and Merged Patch, because Mod Organizer doesn't like it when you keep things in the overwrite folder, so it's easy enough to do that. So now we have TES5 merged, the custom patch, in good old Blue Peter style. Here's one I made earlier. And the bashed patch. Now, if we open up Loot, click on Edit Metadata, and then when we go down to the bottom here, you can see Custom Patch. Now I have actually given custom patch a load order. All you have to do is click on load order, add plugin, and then just type in test5merge.esp and test5merge.esp. And you'll get them both up in there. We click save changes, and then we sort plugins again. And then this time, fingers crossed, we should have merged patch, custom patch, followed by the bashed patch. Okay, so it didn't do it in that case, but that's not a problem right now. We just click and drag. So now we have all of our mods, except the 3 that we unticked because they're pointless. And then we have the test5 merged patch, our custom patch, which we're going to create. I've obviously already done a few small ones just so I can show you the load order, and then the bashed patch. So now we need to open up Rybash. Which takes its sweet merry ass time. Once Rybash loads up, all we do is select the bash patch, right click, rebuild patch. We say OK to that. And myself, I've got everything ticked in merged, everything ticked there, everything. Got a couple of tweak settings. The actor strength encumbrance multiplier just makes it slightly easier. The standard setting is 5. I've set it to 8, so that just means that the difference between your character's strength and the amount he can carry is now slightly higher. The crime alarm distance, because that comes from the step forums, and it's just helps for things. So if you make a crime in Whiterun, you're not going to get pulled over in Markarth for it, you know. And we set the timescale to 10. In standard game it's 20, so now a day in Skyrim is twice as long as it used to be. And leveled lists, we'll leave that on automatic. We just click build. It'll take a few moments to run through. And that's it, that's your bash patch created. The other thing I would suggest is any mods that are in green, you see how it's got the little plus arrow next to it there, but there's nothing in the load order section here. That's because it's now been, that ESP has been deactivated because it's merged into the bash patch. Everything that is inside this ESP is now inside the bash patch. So we just want to scroll up and check that everything that's green has actually been turned off. And there's one. That's green, meaning it's been merged into the bash patch, but it hasn't actually been deactivated yet. So we just simply click in the tick becomes a plus, and it's no longer got a load order. We close. Done. And you see, deactivated. Deactivated. And deactivated. And now we just start by loading up TezEdit. Right. Now the reason why I've created the merged patch and the bash patch before creating my patch is so that when we're going through TezEdit, we can see what items have been patched already by the automatic processes, because we don't want to be sat there wasting time creating patches for something that's already getting done automatically. It's just a waste of time. Obviously, once we've created our own custom patch, we will then rebuild the bash patch, allowing the bash patch to take any records it needs from our custom patch. Right, now what we need to do is set a filter for this list. because this is just a list of all of our ESPs that right now has got absolutely everything in it. Yeah, even items such as this that don't need any, that aren't conflicting with anything, items like this that don't need any patching because it overwrites perfectly. So now you've got a choice. We can do we can apply a custom filter, or we can just simply click apply filter to show conflict losers. Personally, because I like to see a little bit more information, I would go through this. So what we want to do is you want to untick absolutely everything and start again, yeah? So we have the first box here, and then we have benign conflict, conflict, and critical conflict. And then down the bottom we have flatten, flatten, and conflict status inherited by parent. Now the reason why we put the flatten on is because in cells, when you go to a cell, you go to cell, then to block, then to the sub-block, then through each item, then to the next sub-block, and then to each item. When you flatten it, when you open cell, you won't have a list of this. All you will have is these records. You just have one giant list with all of these in there. It just makes it simpler and easier to go through for patching. So once you've got your filter set up, you click filter, and now this process will take a few minutes. So I will return when it's done. So after a few minutes, once it's all sorted, everything will go red. Oh my god, it's red! Ah! No, don't worry. This is just... the filter we've set has removed anything that's pointless, anything that doesn't have a conflict, anything that we don't need to worry about. And at the same time, half of the stuff in here you won't even need to worry about. There's a good chance that a lot of these are just going to be... there you go. All that is just because the maximum height data in world space, which we don't need to worry about. No need to worry whatsoever. It's perfectly fine. Yeah, there will be a lot of that. But what we are going to do is start at the top in Skyrim and work our way down. So we start at the top at activators, go through. Now, I've already started my patch, so I know that activators is fine. Personally, I've already gone down to cells, and I'm about halfway down these. I'm somewhere down here. But do you see what I mean about the flatten? This is what flatten did. Before, you opened up cell, and then you had cell, then block, then sub-block. But now, because we flattened it, we just have every single cell in the game that contains a conflict. And all we do is we work our way down, find an object, or find an object that actually requires patching. See what the problem is. In this case, the sky weather hasn't been copied over because it's from the unofficial patches. I would always recommend that anything from the unofficial patches should not be put into a patch, it should be put directly into the ESP itself. Because all mods, ideally, should be made with the unofficial patches in mind. But in this one here, we see that the ELE, Enhanced Lighting for ENB merged, has been overwritten by 3D NPC and Undeath. All this means is that in this specific cell in Brittleshin Pass, you're going to be using the fog records and the lighting templates and everything from vanilla Skyrim instead of the ones from ELE. But obviously we want to use the ones from ELE. So on the name at the top, you right click, copy as override into, scroll down to our custom patch and double click. And now those records are in our custom patch and there is no longer an error on this one. Now once you've finished going through Skyrim itself, or whenever you wish, just every now and then, you can right click and reapply the filter. because obviously there's going to be a lot of records that you have fixed, so you don't need them showing up as errors anymore because they've been fixed. And the good thing is this one takes a lot less time to run through. And then hopefully if you've fixed a lot of the errors, that'll sort out this list for you. And essentially that's about it. There's just a lot of it just requires common sense. If you find something that you're looking at and you're thinking, what the hell is that? Just look at it. Look at which mods they come from. Look at... Let's look at it, yeah? You can see that in this case, ELFX, Enhanced Lighting and Effects, is being overwritten by relighting Skyrim. Now you would be sat there thinking, oh yeah, but I want to use ELFX because that adds the good ones. Yes, you do, but at the same time, this relighting Skyrim mod is the relighting Skyrim mod that has already been created for ELFX. So that means if you start copying data over to your custom patch, you're basically going to be making this mod completely pointless. So in this case, it just needs to be ignored, and in every other one. And there's something that you need to keep an eye out. I've done this myself so many times. I've wasted hours going through patching items, and then looked at the top and seen initially disabled. Now the smart people among you will realise what that actually means. For the rest of humanity, that means it's been turned off in-game. So in-game, the default torch that has been placed wherever this has been placed no longer exists inside the game. So there's no point patching it. It's just a waste of time. But all you're going to have to do, and I am sorry, this will take a long time. You're going to be talking a couple hours every night after work for about a week. So get yourself nice and comfortable. Make sure the batteries in your mouse are all filled up. Stick something on the telly and just crack on through it all. Work your way through absolutely everything. It is tedious. It is time consuming. But that's how we make a good game. That's how you make sure that records from two separate mods are being used correctly. A lot of the times you'll find when you're looking at NPCs, you'll spot that the NPC has been overwritten by the... Oh, good morning. Sorry, nice looking woman outside. Sometimes you'll notice that with NPCs, you'll spot that the NPC has got its default records. The NPC has got records from immersive weapons, because obviously immersive weapons wants that Imperial Guard to use the correct type of sword. But then it's being overwritten again by an armor mod. So you'll have to create a patch to make sure that that NPC is using the weapons from immersive armors and the armors from the armor mod. Otherwise, it's just up to your load order as to which one wins. And you will also find that things like location names and stuff like that will help stop crashes. There used to be one in my game time and time ago with Worm's Tooth. Whenever I walked down to the Solitude docks, I would walk down the hill. I would, just as I was about 2, maybe 3 meters away from the wooden steps, the game would crash. Every single time I would get to that point and it would crash. So I went through TesEdit, I looked at Worm's Tooth, and I spotted that Worm's Tooth was being overwritten by, I think at the time it was one of my weather mods I was using. But Worm's Tooth had a location name set for one of the specific cells. but the weather mod didn't. So whenever you got to that area of the game was trying to load a reference. I honestly can't say what it was. It could have been an NPC. It could have been something as stupid as a sack on the floor. It could have been a tree. I don't know. But whatever it was, something, once I got to that exact point, something was attempting to load, and it was trying to put itself in the specific location reference. But because that location reference didn't exist, it created an error and the game crashed to desktop. As soon as I copied over the location reference, it vanished. I didn't do anything else to my game. It literally took me 10 minutes. I closed the game down, opened up TezEdit, applied the filter, looked at Worm's Tooth, spotted that outside in the Solitude exterior world cells, copied over the location reference, saved it, loaded up the game, walked down the hill, perfectly fine, not a single problem. But that's not to say that you will fix all of your CTD issues. I'm not saying that at all. Because there will be times when CTDs are due to your RAM usage, and if that is the case, you can find out by using the memory blocks log. There could be times when it's due to bad nav meshing, in which case you're going to have to do some hunting. You're going to have to figure out which mod it is. You know, if you're running round, just example, if you're running around Worm's Tooth and it crashes all the time, it's obviously a problem with Worm's Tooth. But that could be it's Worm's Tooth itself. That could mean Worm's Tooth doesn't play very well with wet and cold, you know. I'm not saying that is an issue, because I know that it's perfectly fine. I'm just using that as an example. But if you get random crashes throughout the world, it is generally going to be a script issue or a RAM issue. You know, randomized crashes are generally to do with RAM, because you're walking along and your RAM suddenly spikes, your game goes over the 3.1 gig limit and it crashes. But you reload the game up and all the redundant crap that was in your RAM's no longer there, so you walk along and it's perfectly fine. But then you carry on playing for another hour and then you get another RAM spike. Your game crashes, you load it up, all the redundant crap in the RAM is now gone, and you can carry on, you know. But when you get stuff like that, you need to start looking at how to lower your RAM, which is why you'll notice when you have a look at my installation guides, you'll notice that I use lower resolution texture packs than I could. You know, I use 1024 textures, I use 1K textures for landscape, because outdoors you need to watch your RAM. Indoors, you can usually get away with it. But we have the memory blocks log, and the actual log itself, the memory blocks log, when it runs, doesn't do a lot. All it does is it creates this file here. And this shows you the 2 blocks within Skyrim. Because the memory blocks log, some of you may remember the SSME mods that came out. There was a guy called Chesson, I believe that's how you're supposed to pronounce it, Chesson, whatever. Found out exactly how the Gamebryo engine accesses and utilizes the RAM in your computer. Skyrim, Fallout, Oblivion, all of them. All those games have now got the patch that he created worked into the SKSE or the FNV version of it or the Oblivion version of it. They've all got this built into it now, so you can actually change this value. In the Skyrim game, you've got the first block of memory that runs 256 meg. You go over 256 meg, the game goes into the second block and then crashes. If you increase the size of the first block, you're a hell of a lot better off. And that's done in SKSE, and the settings are very simple. But when you run the game with memory blocks log, you'll get a hell of a lot more lines. Now, if the number at the bottom is 512, you're running too many texture packs, you need to lower them down. If the number at the bottom's 480, you've got it about right. It's that simple. If your game crashes, go to the memory blocks log, have a look, and if the number at the bottom is the same as the number at the top, it's a RAM issue. If you open up your... No, I'm trying to... if you open up... Where am I going? I'm going down to Skyrim somewhere. If you open up your script, your Papyrus log, you can do some bug editing at the bottom of the Papyrus log to find out what was going on down there. So, I completely lost myself. What was I saying? Yeah. Patching will fix a lot of issues in your game. If you keep getting random crashes all over the place, it's usually to do with RAM, and that's only because there is a slight coding issue, which, to my knowledge, is a standard computer 32-bit coding issue. It's got nothing to do with Skyrim. It's just a standard issue. It means basically what the problem is anything that is within your graphics RAM, anything that's in your VRAMs, for some reason gets duplicated into your standard RAM. So any textures that are loaded up in your graphics card will get copied into your system RAM, increasing the size of your system RAM usage. That is the entire basis of the 3.1 gig error. That's why in Skyrim we use the performance monitor to find out what our RAM usage is. If the RAM usage gets too high, we start getting random crashes. If we get consistent, reproducible, every single time I walk past that tree the game crashes guaranteed, you need to be looking inside TezEdit at that cell where you were. It may take you a while to figure it out where you were. I am sorry about that, but have a look in TezEdit, see if there's any glitches or problems in there. If there isn't, have a look at the mods you're using that edit that area. See what they're doing. Have a look in your Papyrus log. Sometimes in the Papyrus log you'll spot a few hundred times something will pop up saying script crashed when applying whatever to an NPC. Bang, right, okay then, so what mods have I got that edit the items NPC uses? It could be an armor mod. It could be Perma itself, that because Perma adds new spells and potions to NPCs. It could be Obis. It could be the fact that I'm using Aziz, and Aziz is tweaking the NPCs themselves, stuff like that. So it does take a long time. Luckily, I've got the bonus of I've been modding Skyrim like hell since the moment it came out, and I am trying to help. I'm trying to help other people figure out how to do things, and help other people fix their games. And spending a week sorting out this big, massive custom patch so that you can spend months playing the game, it's not really a problem. So yeah, enough bollocking and waffling on. That's basically the end of this video. I'm sorry I've been waffling on for quite a while. I can't help it. I'm a lonely person. I like to talk to people. But after this point, I will continue to record my actual patching process so that you can watch it. I will Benny Hill the video, so you're not going to be sat here with 12 hours of video. I will Benny Hill it. But every now and then I'll probably stop and stick my headset on just so I can give you guys a quick little You know, I've spotted this in here, keep an eye on this, or yeah, I've just come across this issue, here's something you need to watch. But I don't know, I might cut those out and do a separate video with those, but from this point on, it's up to you. If you want to watch the rest of it, watch the rest of it. If you don't, screw you. But no, what I'll do actually is I'll upload this video by itself. Then I will upload the actual patching process itself as a part 2. And I may actually do a part 2.1 where I just take out all my little comments and things and just have those by itself. So yeah, have fun, people. I recommend watching The X-Files. It's a nice long TV show. You can just stick that on the telly while you're sat here for a week. While you're sat here for a week doing this. And above all, don't forget to have a notepad open. Making notes for yourself, making notes for other people, like I am. So I've already gone through and made a few notes here of things to do, things not to do. I will put these things in the comments and in my in my modding guide as well. But you will find it useful having a notepad open, because a few times you'll come across things. The best one I've found so far is Realistic Room Rental and ELFX. Realistic Room Rental was last updated before Loot came out, when Boss was the load order of choice. And Realistic Room Rental came with a patch for ELFX, because in the old load order system set by Boss, Realistic Room Rental would load and then ELFX would load after it, overwriting all the changes, so you required a patch to make sure that Realistic Room Rental's changes to each cell were being loaded. But now, with Loot, Realistic Room Rental loads after ELFX, making that patch pointless. But I didn't spot that until I loaded up the game in TezEdit. So then while I was in TezEdit, I just made a note, remove Realistic Room Rental ELFX patch. Yeah. It's simple. I know, it's stupid, but the simple, stupid things always help. Unless they're people.